Also recording now. Okay, lovely. So we have a few things today. I think Dinis, you going to share something. Colm, I think Lorraine, you asked that question. So Colm, I think you said you were going to share something. Ocean's got to share something today. I also have something on my agenda, which is to talk a little bit about Flow Nexus. I'm not sure. Was it Ocean UI are familiar? Dinis, Colm, and John, are you familiar with Flow Nexus?
No.
Okay, so we will talk about that. It's interesting.
Sure. That'd be great.
How do we want to start first? Should we probably benchmark 10 minutes each? Maybe start with you, Dinis, if that's okay.
I'm literally on my way home, so I'm actually cycling at the moment.
No worries. We'll come to you. We'll come to you in a minute.
So, so I did a neck.
No worries. Maybe in that case we go around. So Ocean, I see you next on my screen here. So would you like to basically talk us a little bit about Lion AGI and share with the audience what it is?
Yeah, sure. So can I share the screen?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. So entire screen. There we go. Oh, it seems like I'm sharing the wrong screen. Stop presenting.
Yeah.
Should be this one. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to ask Cloud Code to kind of explain what Lion AGI is today, and then some of the research that I do. Basically, I have been working on Lion AGI as a proper orchestration framework since 2023, and it's been quite a journey to work on the orchestration framework. And I'm very happy to see that agent orchestration actually become a thing this year, which kind of like implied my work was not lion, like the animal, Lion AGI, yes. So here I would like to show a tiny bit of what Lion AGI is about. Lion AGI in its core is a workflow processing system. It uses nested directed acyclic graph to process a lot of arbitrary workflows and operations that you can kind of assemble however you like. So for example, here is one way to use Lion AGI to produce repeatable, more deterministic AI model integrated workflows that can be run autonomously across different situations you like. So here, so each of this node, it represents a specific business domain operation that you can define yourself. What I am going with Lion AGI is observable, explainable agentic processes. Even though we might not be able to explain whatever goes on inside of the AI model themselves, hopefully with the steps that we can explain the steps and then reach a level of basically the model itself might not be explainable, but the process will be. And that observability, explainability will create trust. And then trust is how we can actually take the most advantage out of such a system. And so that is basically about it. Regarding this, you can actually use this for anything. For example, I built a orchestration framework, not orchestration, like a specific workflow for handling GitHub issues. That one just goes like this: read the issue, and then fan out parallel analysis, maybe parallel implement, and then clean it up, and then finally do a GitHub action. And then each of those can be performed by a Cloud Code, for example. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Ocean. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So you said more deterministic, and I know a lot of people have been struggling the past couple of weeks with with Claude being somewhat the opposite of that. We've had the all tests are green. People have hooks and whatnot to make sure to try to get what they need. But when you say deterministic, can you clarify how that applies in in a typical agentic flow where the outcome is not deterministic? Often, you ask for something, it says it's done, it's not. Even though you provide specific steps for it to reach it, you may even have hooks before and after, as I've tried. And so, what could you explain a little bit more about that?
So I was not claiming the output will be deterministic. I was more saying the process itself will be deterministic, and then we can explain the process. To get slightly more deterministic output from those processes, I would say use a lot of them, and then trying to get consensus from those. So so this example I'm showing right now is extraction of academic claims from my own research, and then so that I can validate them. So this process goes like process the document, and then so it does a lot of recent action analysis, and then at the end of it, I am able to extract technical claims that I can with the location verifiability. So in its core, it is structured output. That is how everything is chaining get chained.
Okay, good. That's a good use case right there.
Yes, and then interesting thing about and then the point about Line AGI is very composable and then customizable workflows. So it actually is a little bit hard to use unless you kind of know what you're going to begin with. I'm trying hard to lower the study.
The entry point. Yeah, that would be my next question. How do you like, for example, like I do have a similar use case for neuropsychological testing, where there's a lot of where they want to generate reports based on all of the standardized testing and information they have so far, but base that report on clinical information that they already have. And so this ability here would be useful for them.
And the good part about another good part about this is done by like a cheap model. Just through the process, it is the accumulation of information. So we don't really need the most expensive model all the time for this kind of stuff. And if the result or quality is not as would you expect, just do more of it and then evaluate. Oh yeah. Dinis?
Yeah. So actually, I have quite a number of questions for you on this. I just may help. Just quickly on the deterministic stuff, right? I'm doing a lot of work on deterministic, and by the way, I think this is the path to it. And some of my questions are around it. But just for reference, the way I do a lot of deterministic in provenance is I save every step. One of the things I will show you guys in a second. I also use a lot of semantic knowledge graphs. So I try to make that my operations are around semantic knowledge graphs, which basically means that I'm using the LLMs to create the graphs and sometimes curate them, or sometimes already create them based on an ontology and taxonomy. So it's almost like the better the ontology and taxonomy you have, the less room for maneuver is, the more deterministic everything is, right? That's how I get that state. The question I have is, can you go back to that flow? By the way, dude, orchestration is the freaking thing, right? Like the more I look into agentic and MCP, right? I think even Ruben is this kind of discovering some of his latest posts that the security stuff of this is like, ridiculously dangerous, right? We need to contain all this stuff, right? So my by the way, this is open source, right? This stuff you
this is open source. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. What is a data store for each of these nodes? So basically, you're basically saying that each of these is like a discrete operation, right? That's an action that gets done, right? What's your data store? How you define that? How you store that?
Thank you so much for bringing that up. So now I can talk about another project that I do, which is called PyDapter. So PyDapter is
you got good names on this thing, man. You need to help me.
Let me find it for you. So PyDapter PyDapter is a universal data conversion and structure. So easily with this, you can do cold storage Postgres, hot Qdrant, hot Neo4j, and then they will be all in a consistent format that can be easily done just via like something like to object, from object, and then that's about it. This data now can be in anywhere you like.
Man, where's the file system?
What? File system?
File system is the best one, man. I use the file system as my database. I use cloud storage. Let's sync up, man, because I built something equivalent that actually replaces Pydantic in my world. But that's really cool, right? Because that I get it. So that becomes your data store. That's cool.
Yeah. So I added a whole bunch. It's just like a matter of adding a new thing. So I have Postgres, Mongo, even that MP4 structured.
Okay, so you know the two ones I added that are really freaking cool is and about three ones, an in-memory one, which is my base. I added a MySQL, but it's a MySQL in memory that just saves it, so you get one file, right? But it behaves like MySQL, and I did the same thing for a zip file that behaves like a file system, right? So you basically your code thinks that is saving to disk, right, or to a system, but you're actually saving it to one zip, right? And then I have another mode that just saves it to cloud storage, S3, cloud, Azure, whatever, right? But
yeah, so currently I mainly just use Supabase nowadays, a local Supabase.
Yeah, cool. Can you go back to the diagram?
Yeah, sure.
My next question was quickly.
Yeah.
You know when you have your flow, right? Have you looked, or are you already defining the exact privileges and the exact, in a ways, power, right, or capabilities that each of those needs to have?
I really like your questions because I have done those. That is another repo that I work on, which is called Kive. Kive is a experiment of using LineAGI as orchestration. So in here, I define an agent. Don't look at the README, that is updating. So in here, actually, I've just lost Cloud Code to explain to you. So what is our Kive system? And explain the Kive plan and Kive compose to our audience. We're in a live streaming. Don't orchestrate.
I know, man. Half my prompt is there is basically say, don't freaking code yet. Let's just.
So I define an agent within Kive system as a role and a domain. Okay. And then, so what Kive compose does is it runtime compose an agent, and then a role has capability and privileges. A domain has certain, access to their stuff. And then when they're combined, I generate a token that represents that agent and their privilege rights. And then, so when they access the system, I will check that token.
Okay.
I actually have a formal framework on this.
That's pretty cool, man. Have you looked at actually then going a level deep and actually basically, let's say running this on AWS or a cloud environment or whatever environment you're in, actually having then the privilege to be native to that? See, I come from a security point of view, right? And every time you have an entity with a lot of power checking other entities for stuff, my head is always going, yeah, how can you bypass that? So I like where you're going. It would be really, really powerful if, for example, the token itself did not have the privileges anyway. Like on the cloud environment, for example, whatever environment you're running, that moment in time is not your framework that's enforcing, is literally the environment that you're running under.
I have a complete formal verification system on the capability stuff that is built on top of category theory, and then it's more like the lower level of operating system in that point of view. It's more trying to do a agent safe by default system, just kind of like Rust is memory safe. I really need to get going. Like Mondweep is trying to say I should stop.
No, that's okay. I think we need to continue the conversation. So I think what we could do is continue on the chat. and also on our WhatsApp as well. Follow up. Leave any comments on the chat. I realized last time that I think it's gets stored in the transcript, so should be all right. We'll not lose it. However, I have created so Ocean asked me to review his material, like the basically documentation, and I didn't find time, so I found time today. So I had some smart time, but I just used a shortcut of putting the details into Notebook LM. So obviously I put it on the chat now, the Notebook LM. Ocean, please check for accuracy. But I guess the rest of the community, if you want to learn about this one more, maybe use the notebook. There's a mind map there. You'll see it on the chat. So give it a go and give feedback to Ocean. And I guess, Ocean, if I were to ask, what is the top 2 applications that we can build better than anywhere else, any other framework, including Cloudflow, right? Using Lineage AI. So we have all used Cloudflow and other things, right? What do you believe we could do better? And this is not a trick question. I just want to get a view.
Yeah, I actually do not use Cloudflow. I mean, I developed the Rust base for that, the Roof Swarm, and then the Roof Fan for it.
Yeah.
But I personally use my own system. So one thing you can use this for is you can create. It is really the repeatable workflow. So let's say you figure out a workflow to handle a GitHub issue from top to bottom, and then you have 100 GitHub issues with their complicated dependencies. With Lineage AI, you can just literally click run, and then it will run for 2, 3, 4 days, and then the whole thing will be done. It's completely autonomous, and you can trust it because you have written every single step.
Okay, that's interesting. I think let's build on that. I think maybe we need to create some kind of a 101 or hello Lineage AI kind of an application, right? So maybe
That'll be great.
Anyone else wants to join in this exercise? Please volunteer. We'll build it together. I'm also learning Lineage.
Yeah, that would be cool, right? I think somebody said that, and I like the idea of, like, somebody saying, I'm going to do like a sort of hands-on kind of session, and I'm happy to do one of those, right? And we just book a time, right? And then even if it's only 2 people turning up, at least record a video, you do the stuff. But like that would be great, man. I think like I'd love to just do a bit more hands-on session where you basically have some scenarios, and I think Mondweep, that's what you're talking about, right? Like just sort of like, and then I think it's one of those. It's like this calls, right? Just book it, and then they will come, right? And then as long as this kind of happening regularly, it's the flow. Maybe do it on the other week, right? Because this happens every other week, so maybe kind of. And it should be just literally hands-on, right? Like, 1 hour.
Already have one, actually. So Ocean runs her sessions weekly on Tuesdays.
Okay.
Actually, I'm trying to switch it to Wednesday because Tuesday noon people have hard time joining. So I'm switching it to Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time.
And put your Discord channel details on the chat. So if anyone's interested, they can join your Discord channel.
Great. So I'll also put the...
I'm going to move on.
GitHub. Yes, let's move on.
Let's move forward because of time. I guess we got Dinis. Do you want to do, or Colm, do you want to go first? I know Lorraine had specific questions for Colm. So I'm just wondering, would you like to go first, and then we come to Dinis, and then I will do my stuff, which is the
sure.
Flow Nexus.
I will. I might have to get it. We got a little bit of sunshine in here in Ireland for the... It's at the end of the day, but I'm getting a straight.
I was going to say, man, where the hell are you, man?
I'm in Galway in Ireland.
You have a beautiful glow.
yeah, that's the sun. That's the evening sun. All right, so let me share my screen. Very different, and there's great presentation. Thank you, Ocean. I just sent you a connection thingy there. So let me try and share my screen now. This is an experiment, right? And I'm trying to address one of the problems that I have. Basically, my background is a product manager. I have some writing background, some theater, play off Broadway years ago, and so writing interests me. But the wonderful thing about AI for all of us, it's like the Renaissance period in creation. You can imagine, for me, like I'd imagine an engineer looking out the window like I am now 100 years ago and thinking, I'd love to build a bridge. I'd love to, and they can't. They can't. They're locked into the constraint of the society. and what's available to them at the time. Now we can build anything, right? We all know that we can do that. Look at the amazing work that everybody is doing. But the same problem is, there's a different problem now, and it's how do we reach an audience for the work that we can create, like as we're going along. Like in the few minutes before this meeting, I had a thought. You know, at home we speak a mixture between French, Irish, and English. That's natural for Irish. Irish people often pepper different languages together. Often just because you don't want someone else to understand. If you don't want your daughter to understand, you'll mix the languages. So you could say, "Hey, has she done her homework?" And so I created the Firish language and put it up on GitHub like 3 minutes before this meeting, and all that, and using Claude Flow to help me do that. So we have this ability to create absolutely the first thing that comes to our head, and it's fantastic. But how does anybody get to see, or how do you eventually make a living out of this work? You know, like a craftsman or woman from another age, like you just need to pay the rent. So we're all being able to build stuff, but we can't. The question is, how do we connect to people to do that, right? And I know some of you may have that issue. So where did I start with this experiment? My niece was here reading a book, and I said, "What are you reading?" And it's this romance book. And then she just started telling me about BookTok, and then she told me about tropes. I said, "My God, this is like, oh, this is something coded, right? That's very formulaic." And I said, "I wonder, can I pull out those formulas from BookTok?" And it's dead easy. And that's why I said, oh, you know, my insight was AI has this topology of all of human knowledge. So it's very good at explaining back to us what is, but it's also very good at decoding what is. And so I was able to very easily just ask it, how does this work? And it gives me lists and lists and lists and of how these works, the what they call tropes, enemies to lovers, who did this to you, friends to lovers is another one, and how they all mix together. So essentially you can ChatGPT or anything can just pull out exactly how these things work, right? So that insight is around that the ability of AI as a domain decoder means that, you know, now we don't actually have to fully learn every domain just to understand, get AI to tell us what the rules are. And then we have the ability to work between multiple domains. You could write novels, or you could build software, or you could be in marketing. You don't have to have full knowledge of that domain. And because AI is very good at decoding, here are the rules, and then re-encoding, meaning, oh, here's how you would apply it in your particular instance, right? So this stuff you know already. It was just my insights on it. So I in the experiment, I said, okay, let me extract those rules and let me try and see if AI can, you know, and I had the first idea I had. I've done a few of them now, but get out the BookTok formulas. And I was reading an article in The Guardian about this thing called performative masculinity, where people on TikTok are exhibiting things like they wear certain like Lubaloo characters on them, and they talk in such a way that they're trying to get empathy from other people. It's a whole, in the same way you have the toxic masculinity side of things, there's all of these sort of trends of things that were outside of my knowledge whatsoever. But I just found that interesting. Okay, I said I'll write a novel, get AI to write a novel on that.
Can you bring the link to that article, please?
I will share that afterwards. So here's like a finished book that's now on Amazon. And it actually, so it includes the ability as part of the Bible is this is exactly what you need to include in your Amazon description. You need to have the tropes built in, right? And also the style of it. So it's dual POV. So a BookTok reader needs to know that this is dual POV, first person, and so on. They know what this means. Honestly, I don't know what HEA means, but there you go. But if when you're looking at this, you know, the quality from creating a Bible of it, you know, what it produces isn't bad. So this is the dual POV. This is the Guardian writer. And she says, you know, the problem with writing about performative males is that they read it. That's a pretty good first line. That's a good opening line. And then she goes on to say, you know, they screenshot it, stitch it, they tag you in posts about holding space for criticism, while followers flood your mentions with death threats and rose emojis. And she goes on, I know this because I've been writing about them for 3 years. And so, you know, this isn't bad. Like, this is a romantic novel that's supposed to be read in a day or a couple of days, but the quality of writing isn't bad. And that's my opinion, right? It isn't bad. Not saying it's amazing. I'm just saying it isn't bad. But not only is it not bad, by creating a proper, not just Bible, but a beach. So, and I'll show you. I'll just briefly show you the actual how that all works. And like you all, I've got like 10 different Claude Flow things open, right? But let's. I have to hear this back again. So if I'll just show you the folder, right, of that particular one. So it's called I call this the Romantic Factory, right? So it's building all of these books, and here's a template. Now there's a lot of stuff in here, but the main ones are the Bible, the beat sheet, and they will tell exactly that they're used by Claude Flow to break out exactly how to build this, and it includes the writing guides for them. So I'll get, for example, I'll just open up one. It'll tell it. It'll tell don't use this. Filter verbs or verbs insert the character's mind as middlemen, and you don't have them. So basically, it's giving it all of these rules about how to write. And they're all included. So it writes in a very specific way. This is another one called constructed misbelief, a structured concealment in which the author is. Now, I would just tell Claude that I want to, I first of all, to decode BookTok or TikTok type books like the one I created that just showed you. And I said, what's in them? And it says it has constructed misbelief. I said, well, then, okay, give me the rules for constructing misbelief. And this is this document. I didn't write it, right? So that's the power of it there. And there's many others like that. And then it also has a full prompt then for how to write it. And it all of those documents, it says the core story files. So there's the Bible of this book, the voice style, the aesthetic of it, locations, domains. So I will run prior to writing. I don't just go straight to writing. I say create all of the locations for this book after we've gotten to the Bible of the story and the beat sheet, and then the locations. And what it does then, it goes out and researches. So I have one set in Santa Barbara, California, where my niece goes to school, and I said, find all the locations and the specific cafes and bars that people go to and what they order. What are the favorite things? So it goes out to the internet and finds that. So that means when it's referenced in the book, they get that particular ice cream in that particular cafe, so it's recognizable to someone in Santa Barbara. So in other words, it's true. So it does all of that work. The Bible, the beat sheet, causal analysis is very important as well. So you need to have causal analysis going backwards, and you see, is it this? But basically it starts at the very end and it starts, so it goes backwards 20 to 1. So that means it has to have consistency. So that's all of the fun and games with that, right? So, but here's the thing, so I'll go back to what I started talking about so I wanted to just use this as an experiment then, not only just to create a novel, which is one experiment itself, but also to figure out how we can include distribution in it. And this is why BookTok is very good at this, because BookTok is all about marketing from the get-go. So, and I'm going to just skip this. So this is this part is to be able to decode not only just how to write the novel, but how to market it as it's getting written, right? So every part of is part of not only content pipeline, but a way to market every single part of the book. And I built this this part of it that on every single chapter it goes through it and it finds what it's called pull quotes, and then this separate piece of software uses what's called a Black-Scholes model, which is used for options trading to figure out what content would have the best way to create virality for this on TikTok. So my next step in this is to start creating all of that content that the system came up with. Now I'll show you that too, because because it's part of that overall prompt in this marketing section. It's got all of the chapter hooks. Sorry, no, that's empty. But
I think Ocean's got a question.
okay, sorry.
Oh, hi. Hi. Pronounce it.
Colm.
Oh, Colm. So I was very curious. How are you using Black-Scholes for content curation?
So the Black-Scholes.
Because I studied Black-Scholes, I know that formula.
Well, yeah. So basically, what I asked called Flow was to find out the best way to model content from using the BookTok marketing hooks. How to what's the best way to determine the optimum content, and it came up with Black-Scholes as the model to do that.
I see. Did you find it to be effective?
So that's where I am right now. So in this experiment, my next part is to build out the automated content pipeline from that. So I'll give it about a month, and then I'll come back to you and I'll say whether this experiment does anything or not. Whether it's all nonsense or whether it's, but it's just an interesting one for me to try and see if this works, because essentially the problem, Ocean, is that we have the same problem when we're building software. So what I want to get to is just like a BookTok, and where every single in BookTok, like you will get pull quotes from every single chapter that will then used as content marketing on TikTok. Well, how do we do the same thing when we're creating software? So the original model of software is on the left, right? You build, you write, you hope people discover it, you put it out LinkedIn, and nothing happens, right? So how can we flip the model in this AI age? And I think we really have to so that every feature does something. It has tutorial content. It has a way of engaging with people. That the distribution is built into the code, right? That means how to reach out to people is part of the spec itself. Does that make sense?
Conscious of time, Lorraine has a question, so we'll move to that. And any further questions? Again, let's maybe Colm, if you have a Discord channel or something you want to continue the discussion, or any or in the community, just share it so we can continue contributing to it. But Lorraine, over to you, and then we'll move to Dinis. Yeah.
Oh, Colm, thank you very much for coming to give this presentation. It's even better than I hoped for. I'd like to understand some of these things, because I'm trying to create something similar. I'm not sure if you saw my presentation the other day.
I missed that one. Sorry, I wasn't here.
So mine is a multi-agent. So it creates books, but I think I demoed slides for my presentation. But I was really, really impressed by how you broke down the BookTok. So I think for us to reuse as a sort of organization, I'd love to understand sort of the rationale behind it. So for example, you had, okay, take BookTok. How do you deconstruct it to get you all those different elements, assuming you went an author to start with?
So honestly, for decoding, it's as simple as asking, what are the rules of popular BookTok novels? Like how do they work? And then I started with that as a point. That's where I said, oh, here are the rules. It's essentially all of, as I'm saying here, like the topology of it and the shape of it. And there is, like it says, for example, that you need to have multiple tropes within the one book. You need to have a certain point of view, dual POV is popular, etc. Right? So that just gives you the basics of what a popular BookTok is and BookTok novel is and what's in it. So like my niece, for example, has 400 books in her Kindle. She just consumes these all the time. And so they know the rules. And one of the things she said to me, I don't like it when they make up in the third act. And I said, that's amazing. That's a real rule. So I used the I used AI, that I used ChatGPT, so on, to just break down those rules, save them as rules, and then they became part of the template that I showed you there. So it was just that research, first of all.
Okay, and then when you then go, so how much of it is manual and how much of it is automated?
So the manual part, it was that first research, and then there's the the germ of the idea, like the article that I read in the Guardian. Good boy. The article that I read, I said that just was the germ of an idea, and then I just started working with AI to say, what about this? What about a Guardian writer and this new sort of thing that's going through TikTok? So that's all manual, and then the prompts, building out I need to build out the beat sheet, the locations, and all of that. So I would say I spent about 3 to 4 hours doing that, and then I can get it to start creating the first chapter. And then if it's on the right path, I'll let it continue. But I do have to check it every now and again to make sure that it's following the causal analysis, causal flow from the end to the first, so that when somebody reads it, it actually makes sense. So about 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours of manual work.
So 4 to 5 hours per book?
It seems to have gets less. So I did another one after that, which probably took me 2 to 3.
So I think, because one of the things I find really interesting, and I'm hoping for this whole, for the whole foundation, right, is this idea of shipping, rather than us having lots of ideas and lots of work in progress projects. So I wonder, so with your book now, have you managed to get any sales from these books?
So that's my very next step is this part, which is start. So I'm going to take everything that it produced out of this Black-Scholes model to say what I should produce, and then create an automated pipeline and start putting that content out there. So that's my next test, is to see, is it true, right? Is it true that this works, that you can create content quickly using a model, to create the content based on another model, another algorithm for the content decisions. Can you automate it, and can you ship it? So do you now have a product that you could sell? Because it's essentially very much a content product. It's a fun content product, but it's still a product that you should be able to earn money from. And I see Mondweep is hitting the bell there.
Let me hijack him before he stops you, because I've been waiting weeks for this and I'm so excited.
Oh, I'm happy to just chat to you one-to-one, if you want to.
One-to-one, but I just love this whole thing of actually getting stuff productionized.
Yes.
Getting sales is another step, but I think this inspiration of someone in our group every time can say, I have something live. I think it's like a nice target for us to have.
100%. And my background as a product manager, it's all about it's the first dollar. How are you going to get the first dollar? And many of my friends would be similar, to say, I'm building something. How do I get my first customer to hand over €1 and say, I like your what you've created has value. And I know everybody here is producing things of value. Though for those of us who are saying, like this, I want to create a BookTok book. Can I get somebody to pay me €1 for that book? That's the goal.
I'm not rushing. Actually, what I wanted to say is that I'm okay to continue the call for a bit longer if everyone else is available. So we're not rushing this. So I love the conversation. So
I do have a hard stop in about.
Okay, so in that case, Dinis, we go to you. Before we do that, I want to just hijack for 30 seconds to show you, whilst we were talking about BookTok, I actually threw the bit about Flow Nexus into it. That's why I was asking about the Guardian article. So I'm going to take 30 seconds to show Do you see my screen now? You see, I see, so you can see. So I'm actually on Claude Desktop, and I am using Flow Nexus. I said to Flow Nexus that research what this thing BookTok is about, extract the formulas, use a random article from Guardian or similar newspaper, then create something useful that I can demonstrate, right? What this is doing, it is effectively not just researching general Claude, but this is where it gets interesting, is creating what, if you've seen Rule's post, elastic sandboxes. So none of this is happening on my local laptop. It is also not happening at Claude or Anthropic. It is happening in a system called Flow Nexus. So Rule's system, all processing is happening server side. So sandboxes are created, they're executed, code is written. So for example, you see stuff is done and keeps going down here. And effectively, what you have at the end of it is an application created, which is obviously sitting. We'll go more about it, but I put the link on the chat. Feel free to explore further what has happened. But then we will come to it when I talk more about Flow Nexus. So I'll stop here and over to you, Dinis.
Very cool. And that, is that using the new Claude
Nexus.
sort of UI stuff that they added?
It's using Flow Nexus.
Yeah. But that black behind the scenes looks like the Claude changed a little bit the way they do artifacts, and I think you're leveraging that. Cool. Let me just share my screen. But by the way, if you guys, again, on the topic of shipping stuff, right? One of the experiments I did many years ago, right, was this stuff. I don't know, Colm, have you used LinPub? Do you know this? So this is me, right, on LinPub, like a good number of years ago, right? I actually want to finish these books now. None of these books are fully finished, right? But you can get them for free, right? But this is LinPub is a great platform to publish stuff. Fucking hell, 2016. Okay, it was that long ago, right? But I definitely look at looking at LinPub, and this one here is on Amazon. I even put this on Amazon, right? So again, happy to help if you guys want to explore this stuff. But this is a great way to ship and also get paid, right, for things, especially for publishing content. So explore that. It's called Lin Publishing. It's a great organization, right, and do some great stuff. Cool, right? So well, I want to talk to you guys about the type safety, but let me quickly just do an update. So I think last time I talked about this iterative flow development, right? And one of the things I've been working on it is this sort of text analyzer that I want to do quickly. So I use that, and I'll get the type safety in part of this. And I actually, again, I'm doing that thing where I build on top of it. So you can see that, for example, since last time, I actually added a couple of others here. I added simple this. So that's the V1. I actually added this V1.1 and V1.2. And the thing, this is starting to turn up a really great way to, again, go and be deterministic. So I can run this in runtime, but what you have here is, I have a way to generate the answers is, you start saying, oh, I want a GDPR analysis. So for each one of these, for every time the user tells us something, I basically extract the facts, the data points, and the questions. So again, what type of information? Here's my analysis. Again, those are different facts, data points, questions, and hypotheses that you generate. What legal basis you got? What, again, all this stuff. And then so basically you go down this and you collect all these things. And then you have like 46 facts, one data point, 66, hypothesis, etc. And then you create sort of the analysis view, right? And then you create a summary from it, right? I actually realized that in that case, there was not a lot of data points. So I made another one very quickly where I want to measure what I do. So then the data was a lot more pragmatic. So you could see, you start to capture this interesting data points. And the logic here is to be very, very fact-driven, right? So you could see like data points of what you have, and again, the guidance comes from it. And what I'm working now is actually getting the questions and the hypothesis to all be connected. So in a way, the number of questions will go down. And again, I have full provenance, everything is cached, right? And I capture the whole stuff and all the prompts here, right? So I can even go back to every one of those things and figure out exactly why I did what, right? So again, this is how I'm doing that kind of vibe coding with, with then the LLMs, but also in that type safe stuff that I want to cover now, right? So what I published was this, which is something that I've been developing probably for a year and a bit, right? But I've been using, but now I found myself that in addition to, for example, provide this guidance, so I now start, for example, a project where I literally give that PDF and say, hey, I'm doing, let's say if I'm putting a UI, I want us to follow the iterative flow development, right? So it's kind of those kind of instructions. But essentially, every time I write Python, I always provide this guidance for the type safe and my formatting and the testing guidance, right? So you can kind of read here kind of what it is. And then in here, you can actually see that I basically have a PDF version, if you like, the PDF version and the GitHub version. So the PDF version is fundamentally, actually an output of the GitHub. This is literally the markdown that I give the LLM. So I literally give this LLM, I'll just quickly go through it, right? Because I think the thing that I really didn't like, there's only one thing in Python that I didn't like. I have to say I coded in just about every other language you can name off, right? And almost like each language had something really cool, and then stuff that I really didn't like, right? From Java, I never really liked it, but okay. .NET, I did some great stuff with it. JavaScript, some crazy stuff. Scala, blah blah blah. I studied in even assembly in my old days, etc. Right? But the thing about, and I did a bit of Rust and all that stuff, but Python for me was, there's so many little things you solve, and the APIs were so great, and I found myself being crazy productive. And then I built this kind of ridiculous amount of projects, right, where you can come in here and you can literally see my development over the last couple of years, right? Because every time I had a problem, it's a bit like what Ocean does, right? I would literally create a project, right? So if it's almost like you want something, you probably can find one in here, right? From Elastic, Nginx, LLMs, Local Stack, Playwright, Markdown, GRub, MemoryFS. So the latest ones are the ones I've been working a lot on it, right? So this is kind of my toolkit. The thing that really always bugged me in Python, right? And I kind of start using Pydantic quite a lot, but Pydantic has a lot of tweaks, brings a lot of stuff, it's quite opinionated, and it never really felt 100% on me, right? And then I kind of slowly developed this thing where I kind of was like, I want to do runtime checks, right? In Python. So I kind of end up developing this sort of type-safe API that allows me to define classes, and there's so many little things so that my code becomes simpler and simpler and simpler all the time, right? And in fact, I think a nice way to show this is that these days, for example, the way I work is, look, I do literally like this. Hey, I want to work on a new service called mgraph AI based on this project. There's the project description. So actually, this is actually a full-blown project description that I created. Again, this is actually this is my prompt, right, for my project, right, which I created using ChatGPT deep research, and then I provide information, and I provide a huge amount. For example, this thing here is a dump of, and I'll show you a bigger one, right, of this. This is a dump of files from a particular repo. In this case, is that repo there, right? And what I do here is I realize that I really like the idea that I control the codes that I give to the LLMs. So for example, like if I was doing a project, so I build this service. So everything I do now is service, right? So again, if you guys go to my GitHub, the Cyber Boardroom, you'll see that the latest stuff I've been adding is just service, 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 service. So every one of these is a service that deploys to the cloud environment. It has full-blown CI pipeline. Literally, the base, this guy here, is my first service, which basically does the full deployment to basically all the way to Lambda, right, with QA tests, and it already has a fast API, everything baked in and tests, etc. Right. So what I do, for example, I have this GitHub digest here, and I can go to any repo, and I can say, hey, give me all the files. So this is basically, there's one around that does similar thing. I think it's called Git something or whatever that you put on GitHub, right? That gives you a kind of a markdown. So this was inspired by it. But what this gives me is this basically, actually, I just realized that is actually Swagger that's crashing, not the thing. So let me actually do this bit different, because that project is now quite big. So let's say that, okay, so this allows me to create a particular subset of the files. So like this, so you can see this contains this particular dump here, right? Like I can just show you, like this contains 113 files, right, of code. In fact, if I go in here and I go token counter and I say, how big is this thing, right? This is 43,000 tokens, right? So I usually do this bigger stuff, and then this is what's cool, because you can go to Claude and you can literally say, hey, can you review this, let's say, code base for me, right? And he does a great job. So I always start now by giving you large chunks of this curated bits of the code that I'm working on, right? And Claude digests it. So literally I'm hitting the 200K digestible stuff, right? In fact, I even got things where I want to fix a bug in this project. I give it this and say, here's the bug. And Claude is pretty spectacular, right, at finding it, right? So again, you can see this is actually really correct, right? And process the whole thing and tell me how it goes. So my point is that I create these files, I go in here, and then I say, hey, go this, and I also provide that guidance. See that type safe guidance that I'm going to talk about? I provide it. And that means that, and I say, I want to work on this, blah, blah, blah. Can you review it, right? So I'm actually creating a news service. For example, in here, it's like a Gen AI way to create news, because I need that for my other startups. So, but what's powerful about this is I provided a huge amount of guidance. I provided guidance of how I want the project to go. I provide information about the cyber boardroom in this case. I provide the files for the LLM service they're using, the type safety. I even provide information about the memory FS structure. And then the quality is pretty spectacular, right? So I get information, it maps the stuff. I usually go analysis. Then I kind of have a back and forward, right? So I really fine tune it. So you can see this is my prompt of how I operate, right? And then I go like this, and I give focus, blah, blah, blah. And then, we go back and forward, we clarify this, and then it clarifies the endpoints. And then this is the power of the type safe. Then we actually start to interact by defining the schema, right? But so what I'm doing here is I'm programming in Python first on top of the schema that I want, where I'm literally locking down almost a lot of the structure and the functionality. And the thing about this is this schema is designed, especially type safe, to go back and forward from JSON really well. So in a way, when I look at this, I'm literally looking at a JSON structure that I then store in my cloud storage, which is why I use my cloud system as the database. In fact, you could see the database structure is defined somewhere up here. There you go. So this is going to be the file structure that we're going to use, for example, in this particular version, right? But it's really powerful, right? Because I now can have these conversations in terms of schemas, right? And then when I say, cool, some more details, let's actually make these, for example, stateless, yada, yada. And then when he gives me the code, look at the power of this. So basically, it's giving me all of the schemas, right? Now, I actually like the copy and paste, because I always use this to tweak things a little bit, and I improve things, but this, like, literally, it gives me 90% of the code that I need, right, to basically set up something like this. But the power is here. So the power is the fact that you now have this environment where I'm coding. So this is like strongly typed at runtime, right, for every one of these. So for example, here, the priority, in fact, this is even, no, don't do that. Actually, it's fine, because it's actually too big, sorry. But so you can see that the thing about this is that this is now all going to be runtime checks. So let's say, for example, this topic, if you did this with Pydantic, let's say, and Pydantic initially looks a little bit like this, although I think it complicates some stuff later on, you can add a string to this list here, right? You can add an int, you can add a topic taxonomy to the topics, and runtime is not going to complain, right? So I like the fact that it's all strongly typed, right? So how does this work? You guys can read kind of the details here, right? There's another key principle that I always have, that I now got to the point that finally I ban strings, ints, and floats from my code base, right? And that's literally the top guidance now. I says never use strings. And strings, because there's very few cases where any of us need a string. String is a 4 GB beast, right? Ints, again, it's very rare that you need minus almost infinite, not infinite, but like minus whatever 50 billion to plus 50 billion, right? Whatever that number is, right? And again, floats can be really tricky if you haven't played with it. So I created all these, again, these primitives that allow me to define. I have now saved uint, I have an age, for example, etc. And it provides this. So this then gives a huge amount of of information, right? And there's a lot of things I solve for references, validation, and this is my guidance, right? I like to align everything, right? So you can see this is that's my methods. I always align the equals and stuff. And in the past, I had to do this manually. Now, freaking LLM can do it for me, right? I like my imports to be always aligned. I don't like doc strings. I like stuff like this, right? And then, so this is literally how I code. So what it means, and then the safe private, yeah, so you can see all the ones I already created, right? But the thing about this is if you think this is complex, if you have an str as just a string for each of these, it's a potential bug waiting to happen, right? Because this allows me to have a very strict regex and validation, and sometimes it's just different numbers for each of these things, and then there's the ranges and everything maps together, right? So again, right, this is really cool. And then it supports enums, and then there's custom data types, and you can chain them together, and then uints, and then there's a couple more cool things here, and then you have to initialize it. So for example, you can just do this, and this will be assigned. So you always try to. Basically, my logic is that you always should try to do the easy thing. It's like if I know it's a string, I can make it an empty string. If I know it's a uint, I can make it 0. If I know it's a list, I can assign it. Which, by the way, in here, if you do this and you assign a list here, it's a massive security vulnerability, right? So again, you can't do that, right? In fact, like this, right? Like you can. I think there's one here that talks about it, right? You can't freaking assign a list at this class level, or else you risk creating massive vulnerability. Again, I do that on initialization, and it's all based on this class, which is part of the OS bot utils, right? So yeah, so this is again really nice guidelines. Yada, and then the other one is the one I use for testing, right? So that's the guidance I use to write code, and then when I'm going to write tests, I give this other one, and this again describes my approach to writing tests. How do I do it? I have this really cool context manager that again makes things very easy. Like for example, this guy here, prototype safe. Look at how easy, instead of doing this, right, I can actually do that, which is much cooler, right? It's testing the exact same thing, and even has some like cool features, right? For like this case here, right? You can actually skip some stuff, right? And then the other trick I always use here, which is defined further down, is I write passing tests for every bug, which is described here, right? So this is the last thing I just want to say. The way I approach is every time I have a bug, right, I write a test that replicates the bug. And I put this in my code base. So my code base actually contains this structure where I have my main tests, right? And then I have my bugs in there. And then when I fix them, I create regression tests, which is this here. So the regression test is basically is workflow. You discover it, it lives for a while. So eventually I fix it. Then I update the thing, makes you regression, and then I move it, right? So this workflow, it's ridiculously powerful because it also forces you to really improve the quality of your test framework. And I think I'll stop it here because I think I presented a huge amount of stuff.
No,
right?
that's great. I was wondering, Dinis, if the Claude chat that you were showing,
yeah,
it is in a state that you believe, if it is generally available, could you share the link with us? Unless it is,
yeah, I'll put the link.
Then we can always, if you put that on the chat, then we can look at what prompting, etc. you did.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and
so
also
this is
other useful links that you showed that you believe we should go through. So maybe we can review it.
Yeah.
And play with it as well.
By the way, guys, this is now, I would say this is starting to be production level, right? Like I use this every day, right? And I'm ridiculously productive with this. Like that example of the news organization, it's like I go and go, oh, I need to create a new news company, and I'm literally doing it, right? It's just taking me, literally, it's probably going to take me in all about 2 days work. Right, and actually, I'm not even, and I'm doing it over a couple of weeks because I'm doing a bunch of other stuff. But it's ridiculous the fact that I can do a voice memo. Here's exactly how everything fits together, and then he glues with my other stuff. Then I take the voice memo and I go to Claude and say, "This is what I want to do. Here's my base. Here's the coding standard. Here's the stuff," and then basically gives me the freaking code. And then I take that and I create a bit, and in the end of it, and I'm shipping straight away because of my pipeline. And in the end of it, I have literally a news organization that is creating basically the latest. I'm going to make a cybersecurity, but it could be anything, right? Latest news as journalists, right?
So one application that we as a London chapter need now is we want to differentiate ourselves. We need to create, as the London chapter here, a newsletter or
Yeah, cool.
content.
I'll help.
And I think intentionally we want to go beyond what Rube and Rube, Ocean, they are the kind of the main core developers, but we want to take a generic view. So it's like my idea is that I want to feed like this transcript here, other stuff that we are doing within the 2 weeks, right? So every 2 weeks, if we can create a newsletter properly,
Let's work on it.
Yeah, that would be really amazing, actually. If you can,
But you see, but my approach is to do all of this with provenance. So the logic will be that we take, let's say, this news, let's say we take the video, we take the audio, the transcript on this, right?
Yeah.
And now we then extract a graph of it, right? So the graph will be, all right, this is the topics, this is the stuff, this is what's happening, right? And then we have and maybe some of the stuff that Ocean was talking about, the other agents, right? Like this is kind of a bit of agentic, but it's agentic, but every step is saved on the way. So we can then go and say, oh, why did we miss this? Or why did the articles be off? We should be able to go to every single little step on the way. So I'm kind of building an agentic workflow, but I'm doing it step by step by step by step, right? And then the middle bit of it is all code, and the LLMs are used for the bits that, again, we don't stale or that we want to glue things together, right? But in the end, would be exactly that news. In fact, it should be a website, right? It should be a newsletter/website that has the stuff, the information, the links to everything else like that. No, let's work on it, man. Maybe that's one of the projects to work on it.
I don't know, Lorraine, you put your hand up.
Open source tech that I'm doing, and by the way, just for reference, my model now, I'm doing 4 startups, and they all are based on open source technology. In fact, one of that thing is from one of them, and I'm building all those modules, which you guys can use. But that's my world now. It's great. I just develop open source stuff, work on 4 startups at the same time. But I literally use one to the other. So it's pretty cool.
Okay. Lorraine, over to you. You have a question.
No, it wasn't a question. It was more a comment on the video. So I can already take a video and turn that into a newsletter or a blog post from any because obviously I've got my super agent, right? This is what it does. So I think really the key thing is for like this type of agentic workflow is also to define what's an acceptance criteria, because otherwise we really want is something standardized every session. So in terms of, this is like especially like newsletters, you want the same look and feel, so it's like a template. And then we also want for example, who are the people who spoke?
But you see, that's why, in my approach, I think we should collaborate, because I think we're solving different parts. But I'm trying not to go from data to newsletter in one step, because the challenge I have with that is you struggle straight away as soon as you try to put constraints, as soon as you try to introduce quality, as soon as you want to try to debug it, it becomes non-deterministic, right? The logic here is that if we do that, but every step on those agents, it's almost like serialized. It's easier, right, to figure things out. It's easier to put constraints. It's easier to define standards.
I mean,
the jump is not very high.
Because my agent already creates things standardized, I already know how to do this sort of thing. So, but what I meant was acceptance criteria from the foundation. So, like, we need to decide what is it that we want. Because how it is right now is opinionated in how I think it would be.
Let's actually let's take that something that we want to come with an answer in the next 2 weeks, right? This one, the newsletter stuff, and I think Colm, your output will also probably be available by that time, right? So I think let's take that forward. I think I hear you. That's an excellent point, right? Right. I am going to.
I actually jump. So great, thanks a lot.
No worries, no worries. I am going to quickly show you Flow Nexus, what it is about. So I have part of a group, the alpha group, before it has been launched. So what is Flow Nexus? Flow Nexus is what I'm going to show you here. It's basically whatever we have heard from Rube. So it's Rube's product. It doesn't belong to the foundation. But I'm going to share my screen. It's a bit easier for me to navigate, hopefully, unless I end up showing wrong stuff. Actually, you know what? Let me not share the screen because I've got lots of other stuff. I'm just going to make this window a little bit smaller and move the other window here so I have control of what I'm sharing. And I'm going to share my screen, probably that window, which is this one. And there we go. So you see my screen now. So this is Flow Nexus. The idea originally was to create something in which is gamified experience, provides a gamified experience of agentic AI. What it has ended up becoming is kind of an interesting non-technical interface for everything that, Ocean Build, Roof Swarm, and, Claude Flow, all of the stuff that we are used to, but entirely without worrying the complexity. And also, second thing is that none of this runs on our local machine anymore. It runs on a centralized infrastructure that Roof is kind of launching. So read more about it at flow-nexus.roof.io. I will do some building is the new talking kind of thing here. In terms of what it does, it uses this infrastructure, E2B. So E2B, I also learned about this in the last 2 weeks, is elastic sandboxes. I think that's what it is. It does. You can start free of charge. This is what is being used for stuff that I'm going to show you shortly. There is also a tutorial that has been created, and the tutorial is here. I will put this in the chat, or it is actually there in the notebook LM that I kind of shared with you. The notebook was created from this particular tutorial, but I'll put it on the chat anyways for reference. So what I did today, okay, before I go, Colm, the stuff that you were showing, right? I did the following, which is I was still working on it. I am going to share that instead now to kind of provide a bit more perspective. So I am going to stop presenting this screen. In fact, I'm going to present something else, which is the entire screen, because I think that'll just be easier for me to navigate. So here we go, and share. Hopefully you can see the wider screen now. So I am actually in Claude Code, and what I have got here is just for you to understand. There's an MCP server. I do not know why this is not showing up properly enough. If we, yeah, okay, it should not be showing this way, but let me just move away and come back when hopefully it'll correct itself. It does. So this is, I gave the same prompt as we discussed before, and it came back with a series of obviously code that it has run centrally on the Flow Nexus system. And I asked it to create a practical demonstratable tool based on BookTok formula. And it did create something, which it is calling itself interactive BookTok content generator, which kind of looks like this. I am going to pull this across here and close the JavaScript stuff. Hopefully I'm still on the right window. Yeah, looks like. So it's a demonstration app, but I guess, if you say like, it is a nice day, right? And you kind of get, I think the way I need to look in the code a bit more. It tries to create a level of content, emotional content, I guess, and extracts BookTok formulae and gives some kind of a hook and information about various other formulae on aesthetics and content formula. However, I did ask it then to say, okay, this is obviously a summary. This is a mock-up at the moment. What would it take for me to take it to production? So I had some problems. I fixed them. Slowly, I went to be production ready. It's just a mock-up at the point in time. So it's created, it's gone and created the sandboxes. It created a technical blueprint for its execution, and then provided a summary of what it would need to take it to production. Now, it might seem like nothing is very different about it, which is why I want to highlight something different to show that at the back of it, you can actually have micro neural nets, basically, or basically neural networks ephemerally stood up and processed. Now, what do I mean by that? By that, I mean is that I was playing with it a little earlier on. Actually, I didn't do it from here because I wanted to do it live, but I did it from my Visual Studio, which I bring here. Do you see my screen, the other screen as well now? Am I still live? Can someone confirm? Hello?
Yeah, we can see it.
Oh, lovely. Okay. Sorry, I can't see you on the other screen, so I'm a bit got a bit mixed up. So here, for example, the best way for me to do this would be probably from my GitHub. If I have already, I put it on the chat, but this is what happened earlier before I came into the call. So this is similar to that. I was doing it from Visual Studio Code, but what we did is that we use the host of the MCP setup. So I registered, I mean, this is all test account, so password doesn't matter at this point in time. I registered with a test at 3.1 password. It gives me a user ID. It gives me an initial set of credits, 256 ROOF tokens, as ROOF calls it. So the idea is that everyone gets some free credits, and then you can actually purchase more credits once it is launched. I get authenticated. Then effectively, this is the neural network development work. So I'm basically training a model. And this is a repeat. This is basically this tutorial. So here, if I go to this tutorial here, what has happened is you authenticate, then you set up a project, and you create a sandbox. Someone's got a hand up, though I can't see, so please ask. Does anyone have a question?
Yes, it's Lorraine. So basically, you're creating your own data set.
So I am actually trying to train a neural network to do some kind of classification for me here. But it's general machine learning, obviously. But I'm doing so by using Flow Nexus as a kind of enabler without my having to define, create. It's all templated. So for example, it defines basically, you can specify what you want, right? What kind of tokenizer type you want, etc. Install the packages that you need remotely at Flow Nexus. You can implement the pre-processing logic, which is what you would see here. So when I was trying to do the model training, I gave the training data saying that's finance, that's medical, that's education. And once the model training configuration is done, we have basically have the training results. We do the inference, and this is all invoking the MCPs, which are available through Flow Nexus, because what Flow Nexus is doing is abstracting the complexity of what was possible using Roof Swarm, Roof Fan, and Cloud Flow and everything. So you don't have to install and know all of that stuff. I have basically instantialized a cluster of a mesh-based transformer architecture, proof of learning as a consensus mechanism, then deployed a 3-node cluster effectively. That's what is happening. So that's the cluster ID, that's the worker, this are the capabilities. And then going on, initialize the swarm, which we normally do in Cloudflow. And then I have gone and done the validation agents, right? So you spawned the analyst. Again, that's also the analyst. This is an optimizer for quality enforcement. Then we have pre-processed the document into basically a sandbox for document pre-processing that was initialized. So these are all, as you see, not a monolithic execution. These are individual sandboxes being created for very specific purposes, right? And then that sandbox, which is structured with that ID, is effectively it's a preprocessor implementation. So I put code. Once I've generated the sandbox, I have pushed code into it, which is this particular code, right, which is doing the validation. And then I've done a kind of a TensorFlow sandbox creation just to compare the results between what I'm doing and what TensorFlow JS will do, pure JavaScript classifier. And then we are having ensemble voting created. Again, a new sandbox for ensemble voting mechanisms. And we are implementing the voting code here, right, in that new sandbox. We get the results, and then you kind of go on. So all that, I'll pause here, but feel free to go through. There are clear instructions here about how to get started, to use it. When you log in, you'll be given 256 Roof credits, and you can use on other platforms. I think currently GitHub, OpenAI, Cursor integrations. Yeah, that is all. Let me just pause here. Let me get back to the screen that I am supposed to see you on, because I currently don't see you where you are at the moment. And that's interesting. Trying to figure out where that. So any comments from anyone? Finally I see you. Okay. Yes, please.
I'm just trying to understand, if you're going to have all these sandboxes,
Yeah.
why do you have so many sandboxes?
Great question. So the whole idea, if you of Rube, has been that we need to operate on CPUs, and we are GPU poor. So the concept of working on CPUs using micro neural networks. That means a neural network for a specific purpose. And also the concept of ephemeral intelligence. So you only spawn intelligence for the purpose and for the time durations that you need it. And what this is doing is that it is allowing that, plus also, Claude Flow effectively also, under the hood, that's what it does. It coordinates the work amongst the different basically sandboxes. So which is where you've got elastic flow. You don't need a machine, or you don't need compute for a long period of time. You only get as much compute you need for a specific bit. So I'm visualizing this is like all microservices happening in the agentic world with basically an orchestration layer between the agents. Does that answer the question?
Well, question leading to more questions, sorry.
No worries, no worries.
So because I have the same challenge, right? But I'm thinking, when you're trying to then have a local LLM, how would it work?
I can't feel that question, though I'm myself understanding, but at the moment, if you have a local LLM, I think let us take that question away and I can ask at the main group, because I don't believe this is linked only to Claude Code. It is not constrained with Claude Code only. So I believe you could use, so basically. But let me not misanswer the question. So I will take that question and I will ask.
So my favorite question is really the why. The reason being, you just talked now of essentially like microservices, right, and running on CPUs.
Yeah.
So if one is like the brain, which has almost like this orchestrator, which has the language model, I just was wondering if there's, if there's any insights in there, because you did mention the word mesh at some point, I think.
Correct. So mesh is one of the topologies of the agents, right? So that's what we were using mesh. So to give you an example, this is something I was doing at Rube during the live coding. So all I had said was use Flow Nexus, and I didn't even see MCP, I said MCO tools to test neural network tools and ensure everything is working properly. So we were basically testing Flow Nexus. So what it did was it created, because there are lots of templates defined within the Flow Nexus system. So it came with anomaly detection autoencoder, for example. It came with basic classification template, then with the LSTM time series printer. So it listed out, these are the three things that is there. And then it went on to do some deployment. It failed to create. And when it failed to create, it needed my user ID. So it got my user ID. Then it started to create a nano tier, looks like with 10 epochs, with some batch size and learning rates. And it has done something with it. Then says excellent. Let me test model prediction functionality. So it gave a lot of inputs, and then it got the results of the predictions with 86% confidence level. And then it says good. Then it says let us test the training status, and looks like good news. And then it is neuraless models. So I'm going to fast track this. As you can see here, it's doing a lot of stuff here without going too much. It's initializing a cluster as well by the looks of it. But as you can see, what this is happening here is that I am just given a simple prompt here. And the system is abstracting the previous complexity where you would need a Visual Studio Code or a cursor or a Windsurf. You could do this from ChatGPT. You could do this from Claude Desktop or anything else. In fact, I ended up building a trading algorithm with him, which is still functional. So like this one that you see is a cryptocurrency trading algorithm. that uses CoinGecko publicly available free API data, which is obviously rate limited, and has completely done a back testing, basically using public information. And then I have been able to deploy it to, and it is live at this point in time. So I created this last Thursday, I think, with Roop. And this, mind you, this is it's not sophisticated. This is, I was learning, right? So this is basically a trading bot that was a learning exercise, but it's implemented in particular. So let's ask it, right? What algorithm does the, so I'm actually talking to the bot that was deployed on Thursday. Does the trading bot?
This was during the live session, right? You did this one.
The live session, yeah.
Yes.
Currency. So if you see the response now, cryptocurrency, Claude has got a bit slow. What algorithms are trading bot for cryptocurrency use? How long has it been live for? What is the current status of trades, etc.? Has it traded? And if not, why? Explain to me. So once it populates here, as obviously it's taking a while, I'm just going to press enter. Yeah, and let's see what it comes back with. Once it comes back with, again, the reason this is being done is like, how do we really democratize agentic utilization and basically practices? We have to go beyond the developer experience to make it, like, if we have the right thinking capacity, whether logical or creative, and people have the right attitude, that is openness, then I think, that's all that is required to build and deliver things. So here, for example, it's come back to say to me that it's using the RSI scalping when you're doing it. So blah, blah, blah. Live duration. So September 4th is when it was deployed. It's running for continuous 15 hours. And then basic paper trading setup. Then we added agent coordination, then full deployment on the same. That's what happened actually. We haven't executed any trades yet. But remember, this is demo, right? I don't have that real money. It's not trading, but it's using market data to simulate. That remains unchanged. Now, the reason is that overtly restrictive parameters, blah, blah, blah. And there was certain thresholds, like we were checking for certain entry points. It's just not closed. So we can ask, like, and you can verify what is the current market rate for the currencies we are trading, and what were the entry thresholds we set originally, right? So it'll come back to that in a minute. So let me just pause here whilst it comes back. Does that answer the question you were asking?
I'm not sure. I think I probably have more questions, but this is good. I think I need to look more into it.
No worries, no worries. So you can see that that's you can check this. This is the real the current market rates, right, of the currencies. What we had said here was, it's still not listing out because we did set certain things, but I can share. Okay, fine. So it's waiting. It's very conservative at this point in time. So we can change the settings, which I will do today, and see what happens afterwards. But I'm conscious we've gone like 25 minutes or 30 minutes over our usual time, but for your patience. But yes, that's correct. That is the website. And also there is a tutorial which I believe is on the post, the LinkedIn post. There's a link to the tutorial in the LinkedIn post, so give it a go. Right, that is all we have, unless there's anything else from anyone finally. If not, thank you. We will continue the discussions over the remaining 2 weeks and have our next session in 2 weeks' time as well. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.